The hall of the Alliance stretched wider than any human cathedral, its dome glittering with starlight from 100 different suns. Pillars of living crystal pulsed with soft light, and the voices of alien delegates echoed like waves across an ocean of languages. At the far end of the hall, where the High Council sat, 3 humans stood small and out of place. Captain Elena Vargas straightened her dark navy jacket and tried to ignore the weight of so many eyes. Beside her, Commander Raj Patel clenched his fists, his expression steady but sharp. Dr. Mara Kessler, the team's scientist, shifted nervously, her eyes darting across the strange and beautiful forms of alien life surrounding them, to the other species. Humans were nothing more than children among giants. The crystal-bodied Zarlians glowed like walking stars. The insectoid Verith clicked their mandibles in sharp rhythm, armored bodies gleaming. The Drakari, tall and scaled like living statues, stood unmoving with eyes like molten gold. The whispers carried easily through the chamber. Too young, too reckless. They lack history. They lack order. Humans are not ready. Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her silence. She knew this meeting mattered. Earth had fought to join the Alliance, and now their place could vanish in an instant. The Council's elder, Tezorak, of the Drakari, stepped forward. His voice was like stone, grinding against stone, deep and heavy. Humans seek a seat among us, but what do they offer? They are fragile. They have barely touched the stars. Why should the Alliance trust them with the fate of worlds? Mara lowered her gaze. Raj muttered under his breath, because we survive what no one thinks we can. Before Elena could speak, the hall trembled. The crystal pillars pulsed red, and alarms cut through the chamber like knives. A giant holoscreen above the council lit up, displaying something vast, something unnatural. Moving between the stars, a shadow darker than space itself spread across the screen. Its edges writhed and shifted like a sea of wings. Thousands of black shapes moved as one, devouring the light of suns behind them. Mara gasped. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "The Nithra swarm. It's real." The chamber erupted into panic. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding retreat, others calling for immediate evacuation of border colonies. Fear rippled across every species present. Elena felt her pulse quicken. She had read the rumors, stories told in frightened whispers. The Nithra were not conquerors, they were consumers. Whole fleets had vanished before them, entire star systems had been reduced to silence. Dzorak's booming voice tried to calm the chaos. We must decide how to respond. Yet, even he looked uneasy. Raj leaned toward Elena. They're terrified. If they scatter now, the galaxy's finished. Elena swallowed hard. Her heart pounded, but she stepped forward into the circle of light at the hall's center. Running will not save us, she said, her voice cutting through the storm of voices. Dozens of alien eyes turned to her. Some glowed, some blinked in strange rhythms, but all focused on the human captain, who dared to speak. Humanity has faced extinction before, Elena continued, her voice strong, steady. We've survived wars that burned our world, plagues that nearly erased us, disasters that seemed endless. We're still here because we don't give up. We fight, we adapt, and when the darkness comes, she glanced at Raj and Mara, fire sparking in her eyes. We stand together. For a long moment, silence held the chamber. A Zarlian's delegate hissed, their crystalline form vibrating. And what will you do, human, against a force that has devoured empires older than your world? Elena didn't flinch. We'll do what we've always done. Find a way where no one else sees one. We are young, yes, but youth is not weakness. It is fire, and fire is what the galaxy needs now. Her words hung in the air, trembling with conviction. Tezorak studied her with those molten eyes. His expression was unreadable, yet his tail flicked in thought. Bold words from a fragile species. Raj stepped forward. His voice was quieter, but every word carried weight. Fragile things learn how to endure. Maybe that's why we've always been underestimated. The chamber remained divided. Fear, doubt, disbelief. But a few alien leaders, those who had seen too many wars end in failure, paused at the humans' defiance. The shadow on the holoscreen grew larger. The Nithra were no longer a distant storm. They were coming, and though the galaxy still doubted Earth, something had changed. A spark had been lit, for the first time, in that vast hall of alien power. Humanity's voice had been heard. The Alliance Council chamber did not rest after the first sight of the Nithra swarm. Instead, it grew heavier with fear. The image of the writhing black tide stayed on the massive holoscreen, moving like a storm that swallowed suns. Every delegate spoke at once. Voices clashed, languages collided, and the air felt charged with panic. Captain Alina Vargas stood silently among the chaos. Her fists were tight at her sides, nails pressing against her palms. To her, the noise was nothing compared to the weight of the threat. The swarm was not a rumor anymore. It was real, and it was coming. Dr. Mara Kessler lowered her voice, whispering to Alina, "They're breaking already. If leaders like these can't stand, how will their people?" Alina looked around. She saw fear in the Zarlians' glowing forms, heard the rattling of the insectoid Verith as their mandibles clicked nervously. Even the Drakari, who always stood like unshakable statues, seemed uneasy. Only humans stood still, though their hearts raced beneath the surface. At the center, Elder Tazorek of the Drakari raised his voice above the storm. "Enough. The swarm approaches the rim. We must decide our path." The Zarlian's leader spoke first, her crystalline body shining with cold light. "We cannot fight them. They are endless. Retreat to our inner systems. Protect what can still be saved." The Verith counselor snapped its pincers in agreement. "Evacuate border worlds. Sacrifice the outer colonies. The swarm cannot be stopped. We must think of survival." Mara flinched at the word sacrifice. She turned sharply to Alina, her voice trembling. "They would abandon billions. Just like that." Elena's chest tightened. She knew the aliens were powerful, wise, and old, but they lacked something humanity had always carried, the refusal to surrender. Even when logic said to, Raj Patel finally stepped forward. His voice was sharp, steady, cutting through the fear. "If you keep retreating, you will only feed them. The swarm will not stop. Every world you give up will make them stronger. They will keep coming until there is nowhere left to run." The chamber went silent. Alien eyes turned to the human officer, who dared to challenge them. A scaled Drakari snapped back. "And what do humans suggest? You have not fought them before. You are new to this war. What wisdom could your short-lived species possibly offer?" Raj did not flinch. "We may be new to the stars, but we are not new to survival. On Earth, every inch of progress was bought with struggle. Nature tried to kill us. Each other tried to kill us. We endured, not because we were the strongest, but because we learned how to fight in ways no one expected." Alina stepped forward. Beside him, her voice softer, but carrying across the chamber. "You call us reckless. Maybe we are. But sometimes recklessness is what keeps the fire alive, when reason tells you it's already gone out." The council stirred. Some sneered, others whispered. But a few, just a few, listened with narrowed eyes. Alina raised her chin. "We don't propose retreat. We propose resistance. A defense, not just to slow the swarm, but to break it." The Zarlian's delegate let out a sound like shattering glass. "Break the swarm? Impossible. Even ancient empires fell before them." "Then they never faced humans," Raj said firmly. The holoscreen shifted again, showing the movement of the swarm toward an Alliance frontier world, Vila's Prime. Its oceans glowed turquoise, its skies filled with floating cities. Millions lived there, unaware that doom crept closer every passing hour. Mara's throat tightened. If they abandon Vila's Prime, those people will have no chance. Zorak's heavy gaze fell on the humans. And how will you fight? Tell us your reckless plan. Alina took a deep breath. She had thought about this since the moment the swarm appeared. The idea burned in her chest, half mad but alive with possibility. The swarm expects straight battle, overwhelming force. They do not expect unpredictability. That is our strength. We propose a strike and fade defense, lure them into traps, cut their supply patterns, burn their advance. Not one great battle, but many small ones. A war of shadows. Humanity has fought like this before, against stronger enemies who thought numbers alone would crush us. We made them bleed for every step. The council hissed with disapproval. Guerrilla war. Against such numbers, madness. Maybe, Alina admitted. But madness may be the only thing the swarm isn't prepared for. For a moment, silence fell again. The humans stood side by side in the center of the great hall, small figures surrounded by giants. But in their voices, there was no fear. There was only defiance. Mara finally spoke, her voice quiet, but filled with conviction. The difference between us and the swarm is not power, it's heart. We fight for more than survival. We fight for each other. That is why we won't stop. Some laughed, some scoffed, yet others paused, uneasy. Remembering the humans' history, the countless wars they had survived on their small blue planet. Zorak's tail lashed once against the floor, the sound like thunder. Very well. We will allow you to observe the defense of Vila's Prime. But understand this, if your plan fails, humanity... The turquoise seas of Vila's Prime shimmered like jewels beneath its twin suns. Floating cities drifted above the waves, tethered by columns of light, their glass towers sparkling in the morning glow. It was a world of beauty, a jewel of the Alliance. But on this day, its skies trembled with dread. High above the planet, the Alliance fleet formed a shimmering wall of ships. Zarlian's cruisers glowed like fragments of stars. The insectoid Verith had released their spiked carriers, wings spread, like metallic predators. The Drakari warships hung silent and heavy, their scales glinting like obsidian armor. Among them, small and almost unnoticed, drifted a single human vessel. The Resolute, its black hull bore the mark of Earth, a world the others still called too young to matter. Captain Alina Vargas stood at the viewing deck, her hands gripping the rail as she stared into the dark beyond the suns. Commander Raj Patel was at her side, posture stiff, eyes sharp. Dr. Mara Kessler scanned data on her console, her voice trembling with both fear and awe. "They're coming," Mara whispered. "The Nithara, they'll be here within minutes." Alina nodded but said nothing. Her heart pounded. She had seen battles before, but nothing like this. No training could prepare her for a tide that swallowed galaxies. Outside, the holoscreens lit up with the advance of the swarm. At first, it looked like dust. Then the dust became a storm, and the storm became a flood of living black shapes. Thousands, then millions, moving in perfect unison. Their wings beat like thunder, their forms a blur of teeth, claws, and shadow. The Nithara swarm had arrived. The Alliance commander, a Verith general, with a body like black steel and wings folded tight, gave the order. His voice was sharp, insectoid, clicking through the comms. "All fleets, prepare for engagement. Hold the line at all costs. For V Prime." The fleets opened fire. Light filled the void. The Zarlians released beams of pure energy that sliced across space. The Drakari launched plasma lances that tore through the darkness. The Verith carriers unleashed swarms of fighters, sharp and fast, darting like hornets into the storm. For a moment, the humans thought it might work. The first wave of Nithara shattered under the barrage. Black husks burned, wings torn apart, bodies scattering into nothingness. Cheers filled the COMMS. Then the second wave came. It was larger, faster, smarter. The swarm surged like a black tide, folding around the blasts, weaving between the ships, tearing into the Alliance lines. A Zarlian's cruiser vanished in an explosion of shattered crystal. Varith fighters screamed as Nithra claws ripped them apart. A Drakari warship groaned, its hull torn open, venting fire and bodies into space. The comms filled with chaos. Screams, orders, static. The fleet was breaking. On the Resolute, Raj slammed his hand against the console. They're falling apart. No coordination. No fallback lines. It's every ship for itself. Mara's voice cracked. If they scatter, Vila's Prime will be left wide open. Alina clenched her jaw. Not if we act. Raj turned to her, shocked. Alina, we're here as observers. They didn't even want us fighting. Then they'll just have to be wrong about us again, she said firmly. The Resolute surged forward. Human hands moved quickly, guiding the ship not with the cold precision of machines but with instinct, with desperation, with heart. They darted through gaps, weaving between massive warships, drawing the swarm's attention without fear. What are you doing? Mara shouted. Buying time, Alina said, her eyes locked on the chaos. Raj, get targeting solutions. Mara, scan for weak points. These things aren't unstoppable. Nothing is. As the swarm swirled, the Resolute opened fire, not in straight lines, like the other fleets, but in sharp, unpredictable bursts. Humans didn't fight like machines. They fought like cornered animals, wild and fierce. Their weapons tore through gaps no one else saw, cutting at wings, tearing clusters apart, scattering the endless tide. Other ships began to notice. Alien commanders stared in disbelief as the smallest vessel on the field darted like a shadow, drawing the swarm's fury yet refusing to fall. Raj's voice rose. Target their coordination nodes. Look, they're not mindless. Something is directing them. Mara found it too. Her scanners locked onto pulsating black spheres hidden among the swarm. There are those nodes. If we hit them, the swarm loses focus. Then let's cut the head, Alina growled. The Resolute dove deeper into the storm, weapons blazing. One by one, the nodes exploded in bursts of black fire. Suddenly, the swarm's perfect rhythm faltered. The tide broke into fragments, confused, less certain. The Alliance fleet, scattered and bloodied, had room to breathe again. On the comms, voices rose in disbelief. It's the humans. They found a weakness. They're holding them back. For the first time, the Alliance ships rallied. Zarlian's beams struck true. Drakari lances cut deeper. Varith fighters surged again. The line held not because of the great fleets, but because one small human ship had shown them how to fight. But victory came with a cost. Alarms screamed on the Resolute. The hull shook violently. Panels burst in sparks. A Nithra creature slammed against their shields, tearing at them with relentless fury. Raj gritted his teeth. Shields down to 30%. Hold together, Alina shouted. The Resolute spun, guns blazing, and the creature shattered into fragments. But smoke filled the bridge, and Mara's hands shook as she clutched the console. We can't keep this up forever. Elena's chest ached, but her voice stayed firm. We don't need forever, just long enough. And long enough, they had given. The swarm retreated from Vila's Prime's skies. Not destroyed but slowed, wounded, denied its first easy feast. The Alliance fleet limped, scarred and broken, yet alive. As silence fell over the comms, one voice whispered what many now realized. The humans, they turned the tide. Alina sank into her chair, sweat dripping down her brow. Raj placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Mara closed her eyes, her face pale but alive with awe. For the first time, the galaxy had seen humanity not as children, not as fragile newcomers, but as something else entirely, a fire that refused to die. And deep within the swarm, unseen by all, something stirred. The Nithra had taken notice. The battle for Velas Prime had ended, but the scars of it stretched far and deep. The once glittering Alliance fleet returned broken. Ships floated with scorched hulls, and wounded pilots whispered their last words into fading coms. Velas Prime was safe for now, yet victory tasted bitter. The swarm had not been defeated. Delayed, on the human ship Resolute, silence filled the bridge. Captain Alina Vargas leaned against the railing, her shoulders heavy. Around her, sparks hissed from damaged panels, smoke clung to the air, and the hum of strained engines filled every pause. Commander Raj Patel stood quietly by her side, eyes fixed on the stars outside. Dr. Mara Kessler worked over the medical readouts, though her hands shook from exhaustion. They saw it, Raj finally said. His voice was low, steady. The Alliance knows now. We're not children. We can fight. Alina gave a faint nod, but her face stayed hard. Yes, but that doesn't mean they'll trust us. And she was right. In the days that followed, the Alliance Council gathered again, this time in the shadow of loss. The great hall no longer felt like a temple of order. Its crystal walls dimmed as voices rose in anger and fear. Delegates pointed claws, mandibles, and glowing limbs at each other, blaming one species or another for the heavy losses. The Zarlians demanded a full retreat to their inner worlds. The Varith accused the Drakari of holding back their true strength. The Drakari answered with a cold silence that spoke of growing pride and suspicion. Through it all, the humans listened. Alina stood with Raj and Mara at the council's edge, watching the cracks widen between the great powers. They're not uniting, Mara whispered. They're tearing themselves apart. Zorak of the Drakari slammed his tail against the crystal floor, the sound echoing like thunder. Enough. Division will kill us faster than the swarm. But even he could not stop what had already begun. Late that night, in the quiet of the Resolute, a secret message reached Alina. It was scrambled, almost hidden, buried in the comms traffic. Raj decrypted it with careful hands, his eyes narrowing as the words appeared on the screen. Mara leaned over his shoulder, reading, her face drained of color. No, this can't be real. Elena's voice was hard. Say it. Raj swallowed. A faction of the Alliance, the Zarlians, and parts of the Varith fleet. They're negotiating with the swarm. They think if they surrender, the Nithra will spare their core worlds. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the low hum of the ship. Mara's hands trembled. They would betray everyone else. Billions of lives just given away. Alina closed her eyes, anger burning through her chest. Fear makes people blind. They think sacrifice will save them, but the swarm doesn't make deals. They consume. Raj's jaw tightened. If the Alliance doesn't know about this, they'll be crushed from within before the next battle even begins. But bringing the truth forward would not be easy. Humans were still considered outsiders. Many still thought their actions at Velas Prime had been luck, not skill. If they accused the great powers of betrayal, no one might believe them. Alina looked between Raj and Mara. Then we'll need proof. For days, the Resolute moved in silence, following faint signals, intercepting fragments of coded transmissions. Raj worked tirelessly at the comms, his eyes red with exhaustion. Mara mapped every movement of the fleets, tracing patterns that didn't fit with it. The shadow of the swarm grew heavier with each passing day. The Nithora had not slowed after Velas Prime. They had gathered, multiplied, and now surged toward the heart of the Alliance. Entire border sectors had gone silent. Planets once filled with life now drifted cold and empty, their skies torn apart, their oceans boiling under black wings. In the Alliance Council, voices clashed again. Some demanded retreat. Others, shamed by the evidence of betrayal, pushed for war. Fear hung like poison in the air. Through it all, Captain Alina Vargas stood steady. She did not shout, she did not argue. She only listened, her eyes sharp and unyielding. When the council finally demanded a plan, she spoke plainly. We can't run. We can't negotiate. The swarm only takes. If we fight as scattered fleets, we'll lose. But if we fight with one will, every ship, every hand, we might stand a chance. Her words rippled through the chamber. Some laughed bitterly, others looked away. Yet Zorak, of the Drakari, leaned forward, his golden eyes locked on her. And who will lead such a reckless stand? The humans. Alina did not look away. If no one else will, then yes. The battle came at the edge of a dying star system, where shattered asteroids drifted like broken bones around a red sun. The Alliance fleet gathered their thousands of ships, massive and powerful, from every corner of the galaxy. The Resolute looked tiny among them, a single human vessel, scarred and patched, yet steady as it drifted into formation. Inside, Raj Patel studied the tactical display, his brow furrowed. They outnumber us 10-1. If they breach the first line, it's over. Mara's voice trembled, but her hands moved quickly across her console. Then we don't let them breach. We find a way. Alina stood at the front, her eyes locked on the void. We've done the impossible before. We'll do it again. The alarms flared. The swarm had arrived. The void darkened. Millions of black wings spread across the stars, covering the light of the red sun. The Nithara came in endless waves. There, screeches vibrating through the coms like knives against metal. The Alliance opened fire. Beams of light, lances of plasma, clouds of missiles streaked across the void. For a moment, space became a storm of fire. The front ranks of the swarm burned. Thousands of black forms shattered in silence. But then came the second wave, then the third, and the fourth. The Alliance line wavered. Ships broke, formation, commanders shouted desperate orders. Azarlian's cruiser exploded in a blinding flash. Verith carriers screamed as claws tore through their hulls. Even the mighty Drakari ships groaned under the pressure. Hold the line, the commanders roared. But the line was already breaking. On the Resolute, Raj's voice was sharp. If we keep this up, we'll be torn apart. They're expecting us to fight straight. Predictable. Elena's eyes narrowed. Then let's be unpredictable. She gave the order. The Resolute broke from formation, darting into the chaos, like a wolf among giants. The small human ship twisted through the storm, firing in sharp bursts, cutting at the swarm's coordination nodes, just as they had at Vila's Prime. Other ships stared in disbelief. The humans weren't holding the line. They were moving like shadows, weaving through danger, striking where no one expected. Look at them. One Drakari, Captain muttered over the coms. They fight like fire. Raj called out, target their leaders. The swarm follows signals. We break those. We break their rhythm. Mara's scanners lit up. Their cluster on the eastern flank. If we cut it, the left wing collapses. The Resolute surged forward, shields flaring under Nithara claws. Weapons blazed. The coordination node exploded in black fire. Suddenly, a whole wing of the swarm lost its unity, scattering in confusion. The Alliance saw it, and hope sparked. Ships rallied, following the humans' lead. Instead of standing still, they began to move, to shift, to strike in smaller groups. The battle became chaos that favored those who could adapt. For the first time, the swarm faltered, but victory carried a terrible price. The Resolute shook violently, alarms screaming. A Nithara beast latched onto the hull, its claws tearing through metal. Sparks rained down across the bridge. Mara screamed as fire burst from a panel. Raj pulled her to safety, smoke blackening his uniform. Alina, Raj shouted, hull breach. In Section 3. Shields are almost gone. Elena's chest burned, but her voice stayed steady. Hold her together. Just a little longer. Outside, the fleets bled. Dozens of ships were gone, whole squadrons lost. The void burned with wreckage and drifting bodies. And still, the swarm came. Raj's voice cracked. We can't keep this up forever. Even if we win here, they'll come again and again. Alina's eyes locked on the chaos, her breath sharp. She knew he was right. Humanity had given the galaxy a way to fight, but it would not be enough. Not yet. Still, she refused to let despair show. She gripped the railing and spoke into the comms, her voice carrying across the battered fleets. Alliance ships, listen to me. You called us fragile, you called us reckless. But look around you, our fire burns still. If we fall here, let it not be in fear, let it be in defiance. Fight with us. Fight like humans. Fight like you mean to live. Her words lit the comms like sparks on dry ground. Across the fleets, broken voices rose in answer. Ships that had begun to retreat turned again. The line reformed, not strong, not perfect, but burning with a will to survive. And in the heart of that fire, the Resolute fought on. When the battle finally ended, the void was filled with silence and wreckage. The swarm had been beaten back, but the cost was beyond measure. Entire fleets were gone. Vila's prime was safe again, but the swarm would return. Inside the Resolute, smoke and blood filled the air. Mara sat trembling at her console. Raj's eyes were red with exhaustion, his uniform torn, his body bruised. Alina stood, her voice quiet, but fierce. We hurt them today, and we proved something more. Raj met her gaze. That humanity won't break. No, Alina said softly, her eyes fixed on the stars. That humanity can lead. For the first time, the galaxy understood. Earth was not too young. Earth was the fire the stars had forgotten they needed. But deep in the dark, the swarm gathered once more. And this time, they would not underestimate humans. The battlefield drifted in silence. Wreckage of ships floated across the void, twisting in the dim light of distant stars. Vila's prime was safe for now, but the victory had left scars that no repair crews could quickly heal. Inside the Resolute, smoke still curled from the ruptured panels. Sparks flared from shattered consoles, and the metallic tang of burned circuits hung in the air. Captain Alina Vargas leaned against the railing, her face streaked with sweat and grime. Her chest heaved, her heart still racing from the chaos. Status report, she said, voice steady despite exhaustion. Commander Raj Patel ran his hands across the console, reading the displays. His eyes were red, jaw tight. Hull is holding, barely. Shields are down to 20%. Several fighters lost. And Dr. Mara Kessler rubbed her temple, trying to shake off the tremor in her hands. Minor injuries on most of the crew, but we lost too many. Too many. Her voice broke, and she turned away from the console, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Alina put a hand on Mara's shoulder. I know, but we're still here. That counts for something. Raj's gaze fell on the holoscreen. Outside, the remnants of the swarm lingered, circling the Alliance fleet like a storm of black smoke. They're not gone, he said quietly. They're regrouping. They've learned from us. Elena's jaw tightened. Then we learned from them. Hours passed as the fleet limped toward safety, yet no one aboard the Resolute slept. Every star, every shadow, every movement of the swarm could signal the next attack. The crew worked tirelessly, patching shields, monitoring sensors, running calculations. Then came the message. It was Raj who intercepted it, his voice sharp with alarm. Captain, multiple Alliance ships are trapped near the asteroid field of Kareth. The swarm is advancing faster than predicted. Alina studied the display. The asteroid field was dense, unstable. Any fleet entering it, without careful navigation, risked total annihilation. Yet if the ships were abandoned, thousands of lives would be lost. Raj's face darkened. There's only one way to save them. I can lead a strike team through the field. Draw the swarm's attention. It'll give the trapped ships a chance to escape. Elena's eyes widened. Raj, you'd be alone in there, he gave her a small, grim smile. Not alone. I'll take the drones. But the humans are stubborn that way. They never hesitate when someone else is in danger. Mara's voice trembled. You can't risk yourself like that. Raj shook his head. Someone has to. I've made it this far. Let me buy them time. Alina felt her chest tighten. She wanted to protest, to argue, but she knew Raj was right. Humanity had always been defined by selfless courage, by choosing to act when the odds were impossible. Then do it, she said finally, her voice heavy. But come back. You have to come back. Raj nodded. I'll see you again, I promise. The Resolute held position as Raj led a small strike craft into the asteroid field. The black tide of the swarm followed him relentlessly. Explosions lit the void. Asteroids tore apart under claws and weapons fire. Raj moved with precision, drawing the swarm into traps laid among the rocks. Alina watched, breath held, as the small team battled with unyielding courage. Ships trapped among the asteroids began slipping away, following his lead. Then, one of the asteroids shifted suddenly, crushing a swarm wing but sending debris careening toward Raj's craft. Sparks flew, alarms. The Resolute drifted through the cold void, scars of battle etched across its hull. Alina stood on the bridge, staring at the distant point where the swarm had retreated. Her chest still ached from Raj's loss, and yet every nerve in her body hummed with determination. Humanity had survived every test so far, and she knew instinctively the swarm had weaknesses. Captain, Mara said, her voice quiet but steady, I've finished analyzing the swarm's response patterns from the last battle. They adapt, yes, but only when forced to face unpredictable threats. Their central coordination nodes are vulnerable to small, rapid strikes. We could exploit that. Elena's eyes narrowed. A targeted strike, but we don't have the fleet to do it conventionally. Mara nodded. Exactly, but humans never fight conventionally. If we lead a small, fast unit into their formation, we could disrupt their control, force confusion, and give the Alliance a chance to strike. Together, Alina considered the plan, her mind racing. It was reckless, almost suicidal, but it was humanity's way, a gamble they could win if they trusted one another, trusted their instincts, and refused to yield to fear. Prepare the team, she said. Mara, run simulations. We need every detail perfect. The swarm can't anticipate us. The small strike unit assembled in silence. Each pilot, human and willing alien volunteer, knew the stakes. Alina, Mara, and a squad of elite officers reviewed their coordinates, each map of the swarm glowing red with threats. Their weapons were ready, engines primed, and hearts steeled for the impossible. Raj's absence weighed heavily on them all. Alina clenched her fists. We do this for him, and for every life he saved. The Resolute led the formation, weaving through the debris field of a shattered moon, approaching the swarm's massive cluster. Outside, black wings blotted out distant stars. The air in the bridge felt electric, charged with fear, determination, and the faint hum of adrenaline. This is it, Mara whispered, scanning the nodes. We only get one chance. Alina nodded. One chance, and we will take it. As the unit entered the heart of the swarm, chaos erupted. Black shapes surged, flapping and shrieking. The swarm's creatures sensed the intrusion, striking out with lethal precision. Ships shook as claws and energy tore at shields. Explosions lit the void like starlight catching fire. The Resolute spun through the storm, following precise calculations that blended intuition and courage. Elena's hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship through gaps too small for alien ships, too unpredictable for the swarm to anticipate. Target Node 1, she shouted. Weapons fired in rapid bursts. A black sphere shattered, sending the surrounding swarm into a moment of confusion. Mara's voice was tense. Node 2 is vulnerable. Hit it before they recover. Other squad ships darted in, striking nodes with a precision that surprised even themselves. The swarm twisted, reshaping its formation, but each new strike created more chaos. Creatures collided, wings shredded, black forms scattered. In the midst of battle, Elena's mind cleared. She saw patterns in the swarm's movement, subtle hints of hesitation. They had grown accustomed to predictable force. Humans thrived on unpredictability. Every maneuver, every burst of fire, every evasive turn amplified their advantage. "We're doing it," Mara yelled, scanning the node's collapse. "They're falling apart." Elena's heart leaped. She had never felt this kind of fire, neither fear nor pride alone, but a deep, fierce certainty that humanity could turn the tide, that even the impossible could bend under human will. The swarm roared, a sound like 1,000 storms. But it was no longer a single, coordinated army. It was fragments, vulnerable, scattered, reacting to human-led chaos. Across the fleet, Alliance ships seized the opportunity. Zarlian's beams struck deep, Dracari lances cut wide, Varith carriers surged forward. The battle, once on the edge of disaster, shifted in a heartbeat. Yet even in triumph, danger remained. One massive cluster of the swarm lunged at the Resolute. Shields flared red. Alarms screamed. Mara clutched the console. "Brace," Elena shouted, spinning the ship through the assault. Black wings shattered against reinforced armor, energy weapons ripping apart the intruders. "Keep firing," she commanded, her voice steady, commanding. The strike team responded in perfect unison, exploiting every crack, every hesitation, every moment of chaos. The final node exploded in a brilliant flash of black fire. The swarm's formation collapsed entirely. Ships scattered, wings twisting in disarray, their perfect coordination gone. For the first time, they were vulnerable. Across the fleet, every commander realized the truth. Humanity had not just survived, they had led. One small, daring unit had outsmarted the ancient enemy that no one else believed could be beaten. When the dust settled, the Resolute floated among broken ships and drifting debris, its hull battered, engines smoking, crew exhausted. Silence reigned across the void. Elena exhaled slowly, her heart pounding. She looked at Mara, her eyes wet with relief. "We did it," she whispered. Mara nodded, voice trembling. "We actually did it." Elena turned to the stars beyond, the shattered moon. Somewhere out there, the swarm retreated, slower now, cautious, wary of humans they had underestimated. Her lips curved into a quiet, fierce smile. "They'll never forget us," she said. For the first time, the galaxy saw the full measure of humanity's spirit, reckless, brave, unpredictable, unstoppable. And in that moment, amidst wreckage and smoke, the fire of Earth burned brighter than the stars themselves. The void beyond the shattered moon was quiet, almost serene, but the silence was deceiving. The swarm, battered and confused, lingered on the edge of the system, watching, waiting, hungry. Across the Alliance fleet, ships repaired themselves, crewed by exhausted but determined pilots. Yet everyone knew the final confrontation was still ahead. Captain Elena Vargas stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes fixed on the darkness. Every scar on the hull, every sparking console, every reminder of Raja's sacrifice pressed heavily on her heart. Yet, beneath it all, a fire burned, a fire she recognized as uniquely human. Relentless determination, the will to face impossible odds, and the courage to act when others hesitated. Mara Kessler leaned beside her, scanning the final data from the disrupted swarm nodes. "We've learned their patterns. They adapt quickly, but they still underestimate chaos, unpredictability. Humans," Elena's jaw tightened, Then we give them chaos they've never seen before. The plan was daring, nearly reckless. A small unit of human ships would dive into the heart of the swarm, drawing them into a trap formed by the full Alliance fleet. Every move had to be precise, yet every moment required instinct, improvisation, and courage. "This is it," Mara whispered. "One shot, one chance." Alina nodded, heart pounding. "Then we make it count. For Raj. For everyone lost. For Earth." The Resolute led the strike unit into the black storm of wings and teeth. The swarm, sensing intrusion, struck with relentless fury. Ships trembled as claws and energy tore at shields. Explosions flared in the void, lighting the scene like a deadly fireworks display. Elena's hands moved across the controls, guiding the ship through gaps too small for alien vessels, weaving unpredictably, striking nodes with surgical precision. Each pulse of human fire sent ripples of chaos through the enemy ranks. "Node Cluster 3, Mara yelled, voice trembling with adrenaline. "Hit it before they regroup." The strike team responded instantly, lasers and plasma cutting through black forms. The swarm flailed, losing coordination, striking at one another in confusion. Outside, the Alliance fleet seized the moment. Zarlian's beams, Drakari lances, and Verith fighters moved with new confidence, striking where the swarm was weakest. A coordinated counterattack followed human initiative, turning chaos into opportunity. Elena's heart surged. "Keep pushing. Every node, every wing, don't let them recover." The swarm's center twisted in desperation. The massive central nodes, once nearly untouchable, now flickered under relentless human assault. Ships flung themselves into gaps the aliens would never dare. Unpredictable, wild, and unafraid. Mara's voice was breathless. "We're breaking them. They can't handle this." Alina smiled through the tension. This was humanity at its purest, courageous, adaptive, relentless. The swarm was powerful, ancient, terrifying, but it had never faced a force like this before. Then came the final move. Alina guided the Resolute into the densest cluster of the swarm, weaving through black wings like a shadow of fire. Mara triggered the final coordinated strike on the central nodes. Pulses of energy exploded in synchronized bursts, shattering the swarm's leadership network. For the first time, the black tide wavered, then splintered, and finally scattered. The void, once alive with the hum of wings and terror, fell into silence. Broken forms drifted among stars, leaderless, directionless, beaten dot across the Alliance fleet, ships' cheered roars, and cries of relief filling the comms. Humans had not just survived. They had led, inspired, and ultimately outsmarted a foe the galaxy feared for millennia. Alina slumped against the railing, exhausted, a smile breaking across her face. Mara placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "We did it." "Yes," Alina said softly, looking toward the distant stars. "We did it together, and they'll never underestimate us again." The fleet moved forward, battered but alive, bound together not just by survival but by awe of the human crew that had changed the course of the battle. Later, as the Resolute floated above the peaceful blue oceans of a nearby world, Alina stood asterisk,